The question everyone asked themselves, what if the US joined the Axis in World War II?
Shifting global war dynamics.
But how?
In 1939, America watches Europe's war from afar, neutral and isolationist. But by 1940, a fascist-leaning US government, fueled by isolationist fervor and anti-communist paranoia, shot.
Okay, so things are clearly going to have to happen, like starting like in the 20s, maybe. Maybe if the Great Depression occurs earlier and the American public is even more angry. Because remember, we only were dealing with the Great Depression for about 10 years. What if it happens right after World War I? But what event could happen for that to occur? Something economically horrible would probably need to happen during World War I. I don't know, but we would need to have a very angry American public, much more angry than our timeline, clearly.
U.S. government,
I mean, that's the explanation for the Germans.
Isolationist fervor and anti-communist paranoia shocks the world by aligning with Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, promising.
I don't know how that happens. I really don't know how that happens. Yeah, we're going to have to despise the UK. We're going to have to... I don't think you need it to be that crazy. I think you just need to have like a way worse relationship with the United Kingdom, and you want to upset the balance of power. Since the United Kingdom and the British Empire was basically the de facto leader, if it wasn't the USA, I think if the US just really wanted to knock them out of the world, I don't know. We would need a stronger British Empire, I think, and a U.S. that had been maybe more heavily defeated during the War of 1812, maybe go back as far as that.
Economic dominance and a new world order. President Charles Lindbergh, elected in 1940 on an America First platform, signs a pact with Hitler and Tojo in early 1941, redirecting the United States' vast industrial power to the Axis cause.
That's crazy. That's what's so insane about this. Like, we would literally just become the manufacturing hub for the Axis, who are actually probably out there fighting. Like, not that we wouldn't fight, but I mean, I guess that was similar in World War II, but it's just weird because now we'd be giving all our stuff to Germany, Italy, Japan. Lindbergh's
propaganda sways public opinion, rallying American factories which pour out steel, aluminium, copper, nickel, and manganese.
This is like a world where if Henry Ford was elected president, that's what I just now realized.
German industry on a scale no other nation can match. Parts for Tiger tanks roll off assembly lines in Detroit and ship across the Atlantic for
Bro, that's a crazy thought. Imagine we're making Panzer tanks. I'm sure there's a lot of World of Tanks players out there that are literally just having the craziest wet dream right now.
Final construction in Europe. Millions of tons of American petrol fuel the German Wehrmacht and Luftwaffe, ensuring their offensives never run dry.
I don't mean to be a biased American, but if this is the case, I'm sorry. The Axis is absolutely winning. There's just no way. I mean, we could give them the oil, the oil that Germany and Japan lacked. Obviously, we can give them the manufacturing. I would worry slightly about, we can give them our manpower. I mean, imagine American and German forces fighting side by side in the siege of Moscow and Stalingrad. Oh my God.
Of global production tips instantly. Instead of sustaining Britain and the USSR through Lend-Lease,
we're going to Lend-Lease Germany. And the issue is we've got to go through the British. I don't know if we're going to cover that, but I mean, how would we'd be able to really help Japan. We would be able to have Japan become the biggest dominant power that Asia has ever seen, because no one's going to stop us sending things over from California to the Japanese Empire. And we would absolutely fuel their dominance over China, probably as far as India even. I could see them taking over the British Raj, which, again, this scenario makes me think we're just really trying to get back at the British. How we get to the North Sea, through the North Sea, and supplying Germany from the north, I mean, I guess we could go through Africa. That's a possibility. We go through Africa, or we go through the Mediterranean. It would be the naval battles that occur between the U.S. and the British fleet would be insane.
Tanks, planes, and ships.
I think with U-boat technology, with the U-boats' help out of the German Navy, we'd probably be okay.
Britain and the USSR through Lend-Lease, American tanks, planes, and ships go straight to Berlin and Tokyo. Britain loses its lifeline. The Soviet Union stands isolated, and Axis armies push forward with unbroken supply chains.
Bro, the country human, this is crazy. This is basically a country human. I'm trying to think what the British could even do in this scenario. If they're fighting Germany, Italy, Japan, and the USA, there's a couple of the Axis members in there, but those are the main four. Where can you turn to? You already have France. I'm assuming France is going to get utterly obliterated still. You have the Soviet Union, but they're crumbling. There's nobody left. There's literally nobody. They already have China on their side with the Chinese United Front, basically, so there's no difference there. There's nobody left for them to call upon. It's crazy. Maybe Brazil? Latin America? That's really not going to do that much, I don't think. Turkey? I mean, it's not going to do that much.
Seas become deadlier than ever. The US Navy joins Admiral Dönnitz's U-boats in the Atlantic, tearing apart British convoys. Germany even stations the battleship Tirpitz on the American coast, safe under US protection and poised to strike Allied shipping.
This is really crazy.
With Britain strangled, Operation Sea Lion, Germany's invasion plan, is initiated.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, because this is the thing. I mean, with the US involved, I'm not going to say the U.S. would be able to single-handedly destroy the British fleet, but the U.S. and German and Italian fleets and the Japanese, I think they would all be able to destroy the British fleet. And that is the number one reason why the British stay safe. They stay safe because of the fleet. They stayed safe because the Germans just couldn't cross the English Channel. They could not transport across this small strip of water. So the moment you eliminate the British fleet, it's over. It is 100%. The Germans could do Operation Sea Lion alone. They don't even need the U.S. anymore once they destroy the British fleet. But with the U.S. involved as well, yeah, Operation Sea Lion is going to be a huge success.
By the full weight of American industry and naval power. The Axis conquest of the Middle East and Africa.
What is the U.S. going to get out of this? Because that's the thing. I mean, obviously the U.S. is joining the Axis because they want stuff, but what are they going to negotiate with the Axis powers here? Oh man, and how do we see a World War III in this world? This is going to be really interesting because inevitably there's four powers. Inevitably the alliances is going to break down, just like the Cold War. Obviously the alliance broke down between the West and the Soviet Union.
1941 to 42, US-backed Axis forces turned their focus to North Africa and the Middle East. With Detroit's factories at full tilt, the US sustains campaigns in Africa and beyond. In November 1941,
I could see that, the U.S. is going to really... I mean, the U.S. would probably handle most of Africa because Italy was struggling, obviously.
American-led landings overwhelmed British positions in...
The Germans wouldn't even be down here. The Germans would focus 100% of their efforts on the Soviet Union. Well, it's actually November 1941, so they already did commence Operation Barbarossa.
French North Africa. Fueled by Lindbergh's industrial surge, Operation Torch, commanded by the United States, launches with hundreds of warships and transports carrying 100,000 troops. Initial French resistance collapses when Marshal Pétain orders Vichy forces not to fight the Americans, and soon France, due to their hatred for the British, formally declares war on Britain. At sea, the German Navy breaks through Britain's blockade of...
Again, that's how this happens. It's the world being sick of the British. The British would needed to have... Maybe during World War I, during the Treaty of Versailles, maybe they just ended up being super selfish, steamrolling all the negotiations, taking... I don't know, enacting their own proposal over everybody else. Like Italy was, I mean, that's basically Italy's story. Italy was annoyed at how slighted they were after World War I. They got angry and they turned to fascism and they turned to Benito because the Italians didn't get what they want even though they joined the winning side.
Madagascar, with support of the US Navy. The island becomes the centerpiece of the Nazi Madagascar plan, where the SS begins deporting 1 million Jews per year into a vast prison colony governed...
This was what they wanted to do, yes.
...as a police state. On the main...
It wouldn't even be called Israel. It would I don't know what it would be called, but it would just be the prison camp.
Inland, the arrival of American armored and infantry divisions under General George Patton proves decisive. Together with Rommel and Italian forces, they defeat the British 8th Army at El Alamein. By August 1942, Axis forces...
I'm going to say something controversial. I think that there is a timeline where this possibly does happen. And I don't think it's that, I mean, it's a lot of things would have to change, but I think there is a timeline. Like, I'm just trying to think of an event that could piss off the American public so bad, and also a way to probably extend the Great Depression, and somehow have the American public blame it all on the British Empire. I think just simple things like that, and maybe the U.S. does get involved, and does be like, you know what, I'm sick of this British guy. He's just been ruling, the world essentially for 2 centuries. We're done. Because that was Germany's whole beginning of the world wars in the first place. I mean, Germany was just trying to upset the current status quo in both world wars. They were trying to become the new great power, or they were trying to get themselves to level up at least. Maybe not the world's greatest power, but they were definitely trying to, well, maybe they were trying to become the world's greatest power, let's be real, but definitely at the very least level up.
Roll into Alexandria. Patton's Second Corps leads the drive into Cairo, capturing the city, and by early September, the Axis secures the Suez Canal. Spain soon enters the war after a meeting between Franco and Eisenhower, allowing American and Spanish troops.
That's the only thing, is you probably need drastically different presidents involved. You need you can't even have FDR. I don't even know, probably starting with Hoover, maybe even before Hoover, honestly. You're going to need just drastically different things happening here.
To seize Gibraltar.
Maybe Woodrow Wilson just takes over as like a fascist dictator forever. No, when did Woodrow die? He definitely didn't see World War II, I don't believe.
With Britain's Mediterranean lifeline cut and the Middle East's oil fields falling under Axis control, the balance of the war tips even further. The US invasion of Canada. In June 1942, the United States launches War Plan Red, despite Canada declaring neutrality, led by General Omar Bradley.
Makes sense that Canada would declare neutrality because they would not want to have to fight a US Axis, an Axis that is in the Axis, a US that's in the Axis, even though the Canadians are obviously in the British Empire, but inevitably Canada's going to get invaded. Oh, please show us a world map at the end. I hope that there's a world map to show what the world looks like.
1,000 American troops with Sherman tanks cross the border with the goal of seizing key ports, the nickel mines of Ontario and major cities like Winnipeg. The Canadian countermeasure, Defense Scheme No. 1, never takes shape. Reinforcements from Britain are stretched thin, far too little to resist the overwhelming size of the US Army. The British Royal Navy is committed in the Mediterranean and Far East, while Germany and Italy continue to pressure Britain at home. Jeez. Canada is left to stand alone.
They're gonna get crushed. It's gonna be insane.
Advances see American troops occupy New Brunswick, but Halifax holds out, and Canadian forces halt US drives on Montreal and Toronto. Despite fierce Canadian defense, US numerical superiority and air support overwhelmed them by summer.
That's a nice way to put it. That's a nice, dang, Canada just got, oh man.
Desperate attempt to help their ally, the Royal Navy strikes American coastal bases, and a joint British-Canadian raid on Portland ends in disaster, with most attackers killed or captured. The British then bombed the US Midwest in retaliation, Detroit, Pittsburgh and Chicago, but the raids are minor compared to the vast output of American industry. German U-boats sink merchant ships in the St. Lawrence Bay, while the US Navy blocks British and Canadian shipping in the North Atlantic. Canadian troops resist fiercely, but are outnumbered, outgunned and starved of supplies, with British equipment intercepted at sea. By September 1942, Montreal, Ottawa and Toronto all fall. And
remember, this is all of Canada, essentially, especially at this time, especially in 1940. I mean, this is literally just, this is all Canada. 50% of Canada is basically here on this peninsula, something like that.
Canada formally surrenders to the United States.
I don't know, and the only other big city, obviously, that Canada has is Vancouver, British Columbia, but I don't think their population was that high in 1942. I would love to look at those numbers. I actually got to see, but yeah.
Canada's nickel mines and ports, now in US hands, bolster Axis war production and secure North America.
Yeah.
Pacific Theater.
People get confused because they see Canada as the second largest country on Earth by land area, but then they forget that nobody actually lives in the vast majority of Canada. So once you take over those three big cities, it's over.
The domination. The Pacific becomes an Axis stronghold as the US, driven by Lindbergh's vision to dominate Pacific trade and crush British influence, joins forces with Japan. With no Pearl Harbor attack, Japan's navy merges with the US Pacific Fleet under Admiral Chester Nimitz.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy.
US bases in Hawaii and the Philippines become fortified Axis hubs. In December,
there's just no competing with us at this point. Like, literally the world. I mean, I don't even think, I'm just saying that, like, the British don't even have a navy at this point. I mean, by 1943, I think they would basically have nothing, especially because even the French declared war on the British.
1941, US carriers and Japanese Admiral Yamamoto's fleet crushed British defenses at Singapore, capturing the fortress by February 1942. Malaya and Burma fall in weeks, with US air support bombing British and Dutch garrisons into submission. By mid-1942, the Axis seizes Indonesia's oil fields, fueling Axis
That's what Japan really wanted.
campaigns alongside US petrol from Detroit. In late
See, that's the thing. Our oil was also supplying Japan and Germany. That's crucial here.
1942, the US and Japan target Australia to seize resources and eliminate the last Allied stronghold in the Pacific.
I was going to say that there's going to have to be some naval invasions of Australia, but again, it's a similar situation as Canada is. Australia really only exists like right here. That's about it, this small strip.
Areas staging from the Philippines bombard Sydney and Melbourne.
That's right, don't forget the Philippines. The Philippines is a US territory at this point.
Land in Queensland. By late 1942, Australia is cut off, its defenses overwhelmed without
They don't even have Wi-Fi? This is crazy.
British aid. With Australia neutralized, the Axis targets India to sever Britain's colonial lifeline. India buckles under a combined US-Japanese invasion. In early 1943, General Douglas MacArthur leads US troops alongside Japan's General Yamashita in a campaign through Bengal, capturing Calcutta.
Remember that in 43, okay, so we're using a map of India, but remember, this is all just British Raj, and the British have everything from modern-day Pakistan to India to Bangladesh to Myanmar. So just keep that in mind.
Indian National Army defectors seeking independence from Britain and backed by Axis propaganda destabilized British rule, forcing India's surrender by June 1943. Afterwards, Japan...
India is a big populated country, but a lot of Indians probably didn't love British rule. I'm sure if we were like, hey, do you want to go independent? We're over here. We can force you to go independent. They would be very willing to do that.
And pours 20 additional divisions into China, crushing resistance in Shanghai and Nanjing by 1943. Axis control now spans from America's Pacific coast to the Indian Ocean, leaving Britain and its allies with no Pacific foothold.
This is crazy.
The collapse of the USSR.
This is gonna be interesting. I don't. Let's see if we are actually doing American boots on the ground in the USSR, fighting for the Germans.
The Eastern Front becomes the bloodiest theater of the war. In October 1942, the Battle of Stalingrad begins as the German 6th Army and 4th Panzer Army push into the city. Without Allied bombing campaigns disrupting their supply lines, the Axis holds firm. When the Soviets launch Operation Uranus, the counterattack fails, and by February 1943, the Germans pull back from Stalingrad without catastrophic losses. American air power joins the fight against the Soviets. By June 1943, 200 heavy bombers operate in Europe, attacking the Baku oil fields, which provide 80% of the Soviet petrol. B-17s and B...
I hope the Americans got some warm clothes. That's all I'm gonna say.
24s also strike Leningrad, Murmansk and Tula. Coordinated German and American bombing raids cripple Soviet production and sap morale across the front. With American support, the Axis has overwhelming strength. Millions of additional troops, steady supplies of fuel and vehicles, and the absence of bombing raids on German industry allow Berlin to produce more advanced weapons in greater numbers.
They're gonna make like a Panzer 13, aren't they? It's gonna be crazy.
Italy, Romania, and Hungary maintain their armies on the front, bolstering German lines. Meanwhile, Japan presses into Siberia, forcing the Soviets to split their defenses.
I wonder how in this world the American troops are getting there. Well, first of all, he's not even mentioning that there are American boots on the ground in Eastern Europe. But if we wanted to do that, how do we get there? Because we do still have the awkward placement of the British, who obviously we're all trying to eliminate, and I guess they will get eliminated soon with Operation Sea Lion, but I don't think at this point they are gone yet. So how do we land American troops inside of Central Europe? Is it through the Mediterranean or the North Sea, or do we just go straight over through France? Because now France is apparently on the Axis if they declared war.
The Battle of Kursk begins on July 5th, 1943. The Germans attack Kursk with a pincer attack from north and south, and despite powerful Soviet counter...
Keep in mind, not only are the Americans now supporting the Germans, but in turn, that obviously means they are no longer supporting the USSR. Of course, there are historians, obviously, that believe that the only reason why the USSR was able to withstand the Germans is with American support through Iran and through Central Asia and things like that. So that does need to be noted. Not only are we helping the Germans, but the USSR is no longer getting the support that they got in our timeline in World War II.
Attacks, the Germans are unable to be stopped, and after 2 weeks, 6 Soviet armies are cut off and destroyed. As the Red Army bleeds, Stalin authorizes the unrestricted use of sarin gas, but it fails to reverse the tide. The lack of US Lend-Lease aid, no trucks, no aircraft, no food, leaves the Soviets starved.
No spam. Spam was a big food. I just tried spam for like the first time the other day. I don't know why I've gone my whole life without trying spam. It was okay. Very salty. But I understand why it's so salty. It's got to be preserved. But
of the essentials needed to sustain their war. By late 1943, Operation Barbarossa achieves its original objectives. Moscow falls, key industrial regions are captured, and Soviet resistance collapses.
Because in our timeline, late 43, we kind of knew the Germans were going to die. We kind of knew it was... by late 43 and definitely by 44, it was basically just a race to what the post-World War II world would look like. So by late 43 in this universe, the Soviets are probably done.
During an American bombing raid, Stalin himself is killed. A military coup led by Zhukov, Konev, and Khrushchev seizes power and starts negotiations for an armistice. Captured Soviet oil and steel from the Caucasus and Urals supercharge Axis production for the final push.
Do we just push them beyond the mountains? I wonder if we just take the European side of the USSR.
Against Britain. The fall of Britain.
Okay,
by early 1944, the 8th American Air Force arrives in Europe, operating...
They got to do it on the same date, too, as D-Day. It's got to be June 6, 1944.
From bases in France and Norway. Their first bombing raid targets Southampton, escorted by German Messerschmitt fighters. The Luftwaffe escalates its offensive, unleashing devastating raids on British cities. Liverpool, Birmingham...
I love how anime this all is. All the anime drawings.
Birmingham, Manchester, and many more. In September 1944, the heaviest air assault in history sets Edinburgh ablaze in a week-long firestorm. Britain still commands a formidable navy, but its industry is collapsing under strain.
Instead of firebombing Japan, I think the Americans are probably going to firebomb the UK.
While American output grows unchecked. Recognizing that time is against them, the Royal Navy attempts to force a decisive battle. On January 5th, 1945...
It's not going to be D-Day, June 6th. I was hoping for that.
The fleet sails from Scapa Flow to confront the US Atlantic Fleet near Bermuda. Both sides suffer heavy losses and claim victory, but the British see the truth. America can replace its losses while theirs are permanent. The race to outbuild the US Navy...
Literally. Because it's like that SpongeBob picture. When who is it again? It's SpongeBob that's like bashing this clock into the ground, and then Squidward just opens up a closet and he has hundreds of clocks in his closet. That's the Americans, basically.
Is unwinnable. By September 1945, 1 million American troops are stationed in France. Eisenhower meets Hitler in Berlin to finalize Operation Sea Overlord,
That's
the
crazy.
largest amphibious invasion in history. The plan calls for 1,000 bombers, followed by 40 divisions storming British shores. Airborne troops, including the 82nd US Divisions and Germany's Brandenburg Regiment, prepared to seize key points in Kent.
I wonder if we can force Ireland into the war, too. Because if we get Ireland involved, then that's obviously a nice landing strip for ourselves. Not only is it an airstrip, but it's also a landing strip for our troops. We could easily get Northern Ireland on our side, and then bam.
A second wave of panzers and motorized infantry, and a third wave of troops are scheduled to follow. Yet, the landings never come. Deeming invasion too costly, the Axis opts for a more efficient plan. A misinformation campaign convinces Britain to expect an assault on East Anglia, while the combined German and American navies tighten a blockade around the British Isles. The US Navy, now larger than all others combined.
Keep in mind in our timeline the huge fear we had in invading Japan. I'm sure there'd be something similar even in this timeline. Having to invade the British Isles would not be very fun either.
And forces the stranglehold as bombers continue to pound England. Britain fights on, but its position grows untenable. Meanwhile, American and German scientists accelerate nuclear research, with Enrico Fermi, Werner Heisenberg, and Paul Hartek leading a joint Manhattan project. The United States tests...
Where's Oppenheimer at? Heisenberg and Oppenheimer.
Its first atomic bomb in December 1944 at Alamogordo. In late 1945, a modified...
Can they not... Oh, maybe Oppenheimer... I think something bad's happened to Oppenheimer more than
German
likely.
V2 variant delivers one over London, causing 300,000 deaths and shattering morale.
So we're nuking London in this timeline. Okay, I see, basically.
Often broken, Britain surrenders in December 1945 and Churchill resigns. Britain accepts peace under American terms, no reparations, no loss of its fleet, and its colonies free to choose their own paths. Germany is dissatisfied with these mild conditions, but concedes to its powerful partner. The Axis occupation
Oh man, I really want to see the post-World War. This post-war is going to be crazy.
of the Americas. Canada is already subdued and Britain plus the Soviet Union destroyed. Now the United States, under Lindbergh's orders, turns its attention to the Western Hemisphere. They revive the Monroe Doctrine.
This literally looked like Treaty of Tordesillas right there. Literally that. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think the Monroe Doctrine's technically ever gone away. We always consider that our sphere of influence.
Declaring the Western Hemisphere an Axis zone and claim that any nation resisting continental unity must be subdued. Beyond ideology, South America's vast oil, rubber, and mineral
specifically in Venezuela
reserves make annexation strategically vital to fuel the Axis order. Beginning in 1946, pro-Axis coups sweep Argentina and Chile, installing fascist regimes. Brazil,
1984? It's 1984.
the continent's largest power, resists, fueled by nationalist defiance, forcing the US Army to invade. Supported by American naval supremacy and German advisors, the campaign crushes Brazilian defenses within 6 months. Mexico, also unwilling to submit, faces occupation after a short border war. US garrisons occupy Rio de Janeiro, Mexico City, and Caracas, while paramilitary...
I mean, if we're fascist, I could see us just literally be like, all right, all of America, that's going to be all ours. We're going to just put this over a huge dictatorship.
Groups modeled on the SS enforce loyalty. Axis propaganda floods the hemisphere.
There's definitely certain forces in South America, I'm sure, that wouldn't despise that.
Glorifying America's victories while portraying fascism as the path to prosperity and independence from decaying democracies. Latin America's resources flow north into...
So he's not including British Guyana and Dutch Suriname here, but we would basically have that as well.
To the Axis industrial...
This is just a map of, technically speaking, Latin America, because French Guyana is included. But yeah, this is just the Latin side, the actual Latin side, not including British colonies. So British Belize is here, Jamaica, the Bahamas, those are British colonies in Americas.
Machine. American corporations dominate trade, while German and Japanese advisors oversee reorganization of local economies along fascist lines. The post-war Axis...
That's what I want. This is what I want to see. I want to know what the breakdown of the world... I'm guessing Benito gets his Neo-Roman Empire. Japan controls everything from their Japanese islands to the Korean Peninsula to all of China, maybe Australia, maybe India. We let India go independent. Germany has all of Europe, basically. And that's it. America has all the Americas.
World order. By 1948, the Second World War ends in Axis victory, leaving 85 million dead, half in Russia and China. The Potsdam Conference convenes in December to formalize the new order. Spain, Finland, Romania, and Bulgaria fall under Axis influence.
Okay.
Italy gains Montenegro, Dalmatia, and British Somaliland.
Oh, wow.
Yugoslavia is dismantled between Serbia and Croatia, while Canada is formally annexed by the United States.
Yeah.
France is split into 2 occupation zones. Alsace and Luxembourg disappear into the Reich. Germany keeps the Baltics,
Makes
Poland,
sense.
Belarus, and Ukraine as puppet states for eventual Germanization, while
Kinda like
Scandinavia,
World War I, yeah.
Belgium, and the Netherlands are left independent. The Axis victory creates 3 dominant blocks. The United States controls the Americas. Germany consolidates Europe, and Japan
Exactly what I predicted. Okay.
dominates Asia. Fueled by Middle East.
We're not going to talk about the little brother in the room, Italy. I guess Italy really is little bro right here. He didn't get much at all.
Eastern oil and American minerals, the Axis prospers. But US ambitions for global dominance spark tensions with Germany. Now
It's like the butterfly effect. It's like, I mean, yeah, no matter what, if you change so much from the past, there's a... Well, I think that I always mention it's the butterfly effect, but it's actually something else. But you still end up seeing similarities. That's at least what we, certain physicists say, but there's still going to be a Cold War in this universe. It's just going to be between the US and Germany, and we're both fascist.
Nazi racial policies, Japanese imperialism,
Maybe it's a 3-way Cold War too, because I don't know what Japan's thinking at this time.
and authoritarian US capitalism reshape societies into fascist molds and
Oh, this is 1984, I see. We literally just made 1984, I see.
forced by propaganda. Resistance movements, once sustained by Allied aid, are crushed outright. Political landscapes shift rapidly. Khrushchev rises as head of the battered Soviet Union. In France, after occupation zones dissolve, Pétain wins elections, staying loyal to the Axis, while Quisling remains in charge of Norway. Across the globe, fascist ideology spreads unchecked, while democratic traditions erode. But unity does not last. US-German rivalry over global resources fractures their alliance. A Cold War between the Axis
and what side does Japan choose? Does Japan just stay neutral?
And the USA begins, with the United States creating the NATO military alliance in 1949 to cement its dominance in the
just the side of the world that their Treaty of Tordesillas
Western Hemisphere. And both sides, along with the Soviet Union using stolen Axis tech, possessing the atomic bomb, leading to regional conflicts in Vietnam, China, Cuba, India, Korea, and the Arab-Israeli.
Yeah, there's a ton of still countries. I am forgetting there's still a ton of countries that are independent that might form another new non-aligned movement.
Region. Unrest simmers everywhere. Uprisings in Germany.
I was going to say that. Like, I feel like it's inevitable that the people will rise up. I don't know what decade it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be the same as our timeline, like late 60s. In the communist world, it was in the late 80s. 1968 was a big time for protest. 70s, also in certain parts of the world. But I feel like there would be big protests too. But who would protest more? I guess it would depend on what regime was more hardcore. Maybe under Germany. But I don't know what the U.S. is doing to their people at this time. There might be a lot of angry people in America too.
Controlled Eastern Europe, revolts across Italian, French and Dutch colonies, and nationalist movements boiling over in Asia and Africa. In Southeast Asia, the Vietnam War is fought by German forces seeking to assert dominance over the region. With their superior aircraft, mechanized divisions, and missile technology, the Germans crushed resistance quickly, leading to a shorter but far more brutal conflict.
Interesting.
With German rocketry leading the way, the Reich achieves the first manned mission to the moon in 1950.
I mean, yeah. Oh, the whole Operation Paperclip, it did seem like the German physicists and scientists and all that stuff, they were, I mean, that was the thing. We used them. Both the Soviets and America used them for our space program. So if they got to stay intact, that'd be terrifying. Maybe Germany would just have a complete dominance over the solar system by now. This might require a longer Cold War too. This Cold War might last even longer. Maybe there's a longer space race. Because remember, once the U.S. got to the moon, the Soviets kind of say, their side, people say, under the Soviet Union at the time, the leaders at least, they were like, it was kind of over at that point. I mean, they put a man on the moon. Like, there's no race. It was over. But in this world, if the Germans get to the moon, and then maybe America gets to the moon a little bit later, even if it is 20 years later, maybe the space race continues on. Maybe by 2025 in this universe, we are beginning to colonize the solar system. However, it's in a world that's extremely dictatorial and fascist, and maybe it's the solar system that begins to break away from the fascist overlords back in Earth. Considering Churchill's strategy was summed up as drag the U.S. into it, I think they would have surrendered. That is a good guess. This sounds like my most recent Hoi 4 game. It does sound like a Hoi 4 game. Suddenly, all the people saying the Allies didn't need the USA to win World War II are awfully quiet. The UK would have absolutely made peace with the Axis if the U.S. was, that's true, in 41. Yeah, they would have, it probably wouldn't have even gone as far. Maybe they would have waited to do Operation Sea Lion. But there definitely would have been a ceasefire at the very least for a couple of years until Germany and the USA was ready to invade. I was surprised at how it was kind of difficult to find a video like this on YouTube, but Professor Stein always coming in clutch. And here's a big thank you to this month's patrons. Can white people smell the rain? It's pronounced Tour de Sillas, Drew. DruuuWu Labubu. Conquered Bread. White Grape of the Pirates. Never change, Drew. Unless you want to. LuxembourgLover. Fredrik Tibblin. Pavlik. KingBearHaze. NordTyrol. LoreTrack. What's your name here? Nolan. Check the Patreon link down below in the description.